Okay, so today I'm here to talk about how I like to tinker in the cloud with R, and how I like to, through my job at RStudio, support other people doing the same thing and becoming more familiar with this concept that we call analytic administration. So I was listening to a podcast, and very bad, I don't remember where this came from or what podcast or who said it, but I like the idea of lowering the cost of turning our ideas that we as data scientists produce into reality. So I really liked when I heard this on a podcast that if you have something of value and a PayPal account, you can start an online business in minutes. And at RStudio, I view our goal in developing these tools, Shiny applications, our markdown documents, as doing kind of the same thing, but for data science. So yesterday we heard a lot of great talks that talked about Shiny, and Emily talked about developing these tools that help her do her job better, help other people do their jobs better. And that's a mission that I really drew me to apply to work for RStudio, and the reason that I feel so passionate about working in this space together. So if you have a data scientist, a data analysis of value, and you have the proper data product tool chain, you should theoretically be able to share that analysis with everyone you know in minutes. But as you might have noticed, or maybe you didn't notice, yesterday in a lot of the talks, they would get to the point where they're like, we built this cool thing, and then what comes next? Where are they in their organizations where they have the ability to then distribute that data product out to everyone in their organization and really spread the things that they're building out to everyone? A lot of the times, I think in smaller organizations or ones that have not embraced R as an analytic standard, we get to this point where, sure, on my local machine, I can build something really cool, but then I'm kind of trapped. How do I get this out to other people? I don't want to ever be in the position where I have this cool burning idea and I don't have the tools or the means to distribute it, or execute it in the manner that I dreamed of. But the internet is a beautiful, wonderful place, and there are lots of tools for getting this stuff out there. So as you progress and you're very creative and using the internet, you can do a number of things basically for free to get your ideas out into the world. You could post a GIF or a screenshot to Twitter. You could write a blog post about it. You could create a GitHub repository and share your code through that. You can also use these publishing platforms that are hosted like RPubs or shinyapps.io, which has a free tier. But at a certain point, especially if you're in a situation where you're trying to do this at work and you don't necessarily want to put these things out on the public internet, you start to run into some blockers. So the next two steps can be a little bit more challenging. They involve using servers, dealing with IT, dragons, fire, Linux administration, learning about that space. So at RStudio, we are fully committed to this idea that all organizations should have someone inside of them who is a data scientist who's decided to get very uppity and start doing what they need to do to make R a legitimate analytic standard within their business. And that involves learning a little bit of Linux administration, onboarding new tools, deploying these solutions, supporting the data science team and the existing standards that your IT department has placed on you. We'd like them to work closely with IT if that's at all possible, and help them understand why R is so cool and so important, and why you love it so much. So how do you become this person if you're interested in taking on this role? It's a little bit intimidating, but there are are two main things that I'd like to share today. And one is that you need to get yourself a sandbox, a place to play around in. And this is like what I call my tinker space. And whether this is something that you do at home on the weekends in your spare time, which is not a healthy work-life balance that I like to promote as an Our Ladies organizer, or if your organization is very cool and supports you in this mission, maybe you can get a server sandbox from them. Either way, like taking the initiative to ask for this thing so that you can learn the ropes of Linux and DevOps, practice with open source tools, and then build out these proof of concepts to develop a sense for yourself of what the best practices in this area are. Those are all important things that will then lead you to being able to support your IT department in creating a secure analytic infrastructure for your entire team. So at RStudio, I have kind of seen my job as twofold. I really like to promote best practices and doing smart things with the tools that we have, our professional products. But I also really like to say, you know, like, if you're motivated by practical need and burning curiosity, tinkering is great, with one caveat, and that's what I alluded to in the previous slide where we talk about developing a sense for best practices. So when you have a sandbox, you can do a lot of cool stuff with it. And I've learned over time that there are things that you can do, and there are things that you should do. And those aren't the same all the time. So today I want to run through like a tinkering project that I did last summer for USAR. And I want to talk about a couple cool cloud technologies involving serverless and R. But just bear in mind that I am not telling you that this is a best practice. So I want to talk about Plumber APIs, which is a really cool package Plumber, developed by Jeff Allen, who works on the RStudio Connect team. And he gave a webinar about Plumber back in July. It's now available on demand on our website, so do check it out if you're interested. Mara just the other day, yesterday or something, tweeted this. She doesn't even remember. And it just shows that people are getting excited about using Plumber APIs, and this person in particular wrote a really, according to Mara, fun and well-explained guide to using Docker to deploy Plumber APIs. And this code on the side kind of shows you the concept here. You're basically getting, for very little, essentially just adding declarations to your code, turning functions that you've written in R into REST APIs. The catch is you need somewhere to serve these APIs in order for anyone outside of you working with curl on your local machine to use them at all. So I've seen a lot of good examples like the one I just threw up that Mark tweeted about people who've used Docker to serve these Plumber APIs. But I thought it would be cool to take it another step further and use Docker in a serverless cloud computing environment. Now, if you haven't heard of serverless before, it's a little bit of a confusing term. It's not magic. We're not like doing things without servers. Or whatever. It's basically a term that means you're going to hand off the responsibility of managing this infrastructure to someone else, be it Amazon or Azure or Google Cloud. And the particular serverless application platform that I'm interested in using for this project is Google App Engine. Now, Google App Engine came out in 2008, and I was in college at the time, and I was like, this looks awesome. What does it do? I don't know. And I never figured it out. And 10 years later, I read a press release from them that they now had custom runtimes. So I thought, thinking to myself, hey, I wonder if I can put R in there. Again, sandbox, tinkering, not best practice necessarily. I think one of, so the basic idea is that you bring your code, R or otherwise, and you have Google Cloud Platform manage all of the infrastructure for you. And then theoretically, you just pay for what you use. As I said, R is not included as a runtime by default. They have this popular crowd of runtimes that they support. R is not one of them, but with the new custom runtimes, you can bring whatever you want inside of a Docker container. So that's what I wanted to set up. I have two little app engines here, and one has Plumber inside of Docker, and it's serving this REST API. And then because I wanted to document it and give people like a place to go to learn about my REST endpoints, I also served up a static HTML generated from our Markdown that was then being served by NGINX. Oh, I want to pause here to say I do talk to a lot of people in my position who get very excited about Docker, and I think it's an awesome, very cool technology. My opinion is that it is awesome and cool when used in the right situations. And so you don't always need to Docker all the things, but in this particular case we do, because that's what it requires. So the first part of this project is that you create a Google Cloud project. So you go to the GCP console, you sign in, you create an account, and then you create a project. You should also, at this point, download and install the Google Cloud SDK so that you can do things from your console, and you don't have to be doing it from their console. There are basically three parts to a little Google App Engine. You need your Docker file, you need your app.yaml file, and this is literally the entire contents of the app.yaml file. Runtime custom, environment flex. That's all you need. And then you need your assets. This would be like the plumber.r script or the HTML generated from our Markdown, those things. And this is the Docker prep that I did for the Plumber app. This is just reading in Jeff Allen's Plumber Docker image that he has hosted for free on Docker Hub. And then what I've done is install an extra package in there, ggplot2, because my REST API produces beautiful plots of iris data so that people in Python can use them. And then I copy over the Plumber R file into the Docker container. And then the final process here is just exposing port 8080, because that's what Google App Engine wants to listen on. The Docker prep for NGINX is really super simple as well. I just read in the official repository for NGINX Docker image, and then essentially the only thing I do after that is add the static content. So then we're basically at the final step here. You've prepped your Docker files, you created this app.yaml file, you've gathered all of your R assets together. Final two stages are running these two commands, gcloud app create and gcloud app deploy. It's at this stage that I usually forget that I haven't attached my billing account. And like David Smith was just saying, a lot of these cloud providers provide like free credit to use and to tinker with. So he said Azure provides $200, GCP provides $300, and you do have to usually give them your own credit card information when you attach these accounts, and that can be very scary. But you do get, through GCP, a lot of good visibility into what's burning down this free credit and how fast it's disappearing, so you can say, oh, stop, burn it all down, so that you can stop getting charged if you need to be. I also want to mention that Google App Engines are not an instantaneous deployment process by any means. Leave yourself at least 15 minutes, at least, to get your app up and running on Google Cloud. If you need something with fast push-button deployment, I work for RStudio. We have products. Just kidding, just kidding. Sorry, Jared. So once you have this app running, it's serving your REST API, there's some other fun things that you can do to prove to yourself that this is running and functional and doing what you expect it to in a serverless environment. So what I recommend is something really fun. So you can create these siege servers using the siege utility. And you can say, like, I want this number of users, I want to like hit this API for this number of seconds, and you can add delay. But literally every time I run one of these, I can't help in my mind like yelling, siege! It's just a lot of fun. You can see it running in real time, and they're like waiting to see it, and then you can see how many failures or successes there were hitting your API. Like I said, I did this original project for UseR over the summer, so I have been tinkering with extensions to it. Once you get into exploring these managed services that these cloud providers have available, you'll learn that there are like slews of them. And they all do very interesting, different, and some of them are in beta, and some of them die off, but this one in particular has caught my eye recently, this Google Cloud Composer, because it is a managed Apache Airflow service. If you haven't heard of Apache Airflow, it's basically like if you were to set up cron, but get all of the information you actually wanted to about job scheduling. So here's what I'd like to build next in my next sandbox. I'd like to explore this Google Cloud Composer using Apache Airflow so that I can kind of track like a workflow in R running off of REST API endpoints. So this would kind of be like a multi-step process for training a model or running like a series of R scripts on a schedule that you wanted high visibility into. So you want to know like what's running now, how long is it taking, I want a visual diagram of where my job is over time, I want to know if it fails, I want to get an email, I want to know if something suddenly starts running very slow. And all of this can be accomplished through Apache Airflow, which I think is really cool. So this is my next project. It just so happens that it also runs inside of a Google App Engine. So as you can see, I'm slowly building up these skills, learning all of these managed services, fitting them together in cool new configurations that all have something to do with R. And I'm getting a lot of joy out of it. Finally, you want to burn whatever you've built in this sandbox down to the ground. Because it wouldn't be an RStudio talk if I didn't talk about burning things to the ground. And this is how you do it. Very explicitly, go to Settings and Utilities, Project Settings, Shutdown. So you want to stop getting charged when you're done with your sandbox. Lastly, I'm really interested in building out these resources for people who are interested in learning analytic administration. I'd really like to see an analytic administrator become a legitimate job title someday. So if you'd like to connect with me, I've recently written a little bit about learning analytic administration through Sandbox on our RViews blog. You can check that out. And I also am trying to get this radmins hashtag going. So wish me luck with that. Thanks, guys.